Yes, I had to step in, and it's really nice to see familiar faces. So I welcome all of you, and thank you for inviting us to this really interesting discussion and this really interesting point. I totally agree with Ms. Campanelli. We are at a crucial time in designing certain aspects of Croatian future growth and utilization of the EU funds, not only the Recovery and Resilience Fund, but also the cohesion funds and EU funds in general. Just a first remark about the HBOR for those that are not familiar. So we are Croatian Development and Export Bank, and also a Croatian Export Credit Agency. So in that respect, it is in our, I would say, roots to take care about the development, the sustainable development, and take care of the social and economic development of the Croatian market. In the last 12 months, it was really difficult to discuss any topic without remark to the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges that was brought to us by the COVID-19. But on the other hand, what we want to look in that respect as a HBOR, as a development bank, that this COVID-19 pandemic is not bringing us only the let's say challenges, but also the opportunities for the future growth. I would say the COVID pandemic speed up a little bit, and I think we will all agree about that. Speed up a little bit the question about reshaping the future economic growth model and the future economic growth vision. 1.5 years ago, HBO started with a project of designing a midterm strategy, and this was also the project that was supported by the EU and by the World Bank, etc. And we thank them for that. And within this project, we already recognized that out of 5 pillars that we want to focus on, 2 pillars have to be in 2 pillars we have to focus on the digitalization, on the green investments, and changing the model of growth here in Croatia. So Mr. Alvaro already said that Croatia market has a relatively low productivity and that we are lacking behind the EU averages and generally the averages of the peer countries. Of course, on one side we have Croatian economy in general was characterized by the lower investment volumes with strong imbalances in commodity and of imports and exports, a smaller portion of products that are coming from the high-tech industry. So this is one of the reasons why probably Croatia is lacking behind when it comes to the productivity. And also we had quite a strong problem with skills mismatch. So the field in the field of the labor force, Croatia is having quite a significant difficulties because a lot of young people from some Western countries where they can achieve better results, better salaries, etc., etc. So all of these aspects were already recognized prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic only speeded up the necessity for the changes and the necessity for the, let's say, different growth model. And I would say the COVID-19 pandemic opened opportunities because we all expect to have some changes in the, let's say, global and regional value chains. Mr. Maric already said in the last panel that Croatia is also having several companies that are already local, regional, or even in some aspects, we could even say on the global level, leaders in certain aspects of the new growth, on the green growth, on the digital growth. And this is something that HBOR will focus in the upcoming period. Coming to the Recovery and Resilience Fund, which is the topic of today's discussion, we have to say that Recovery and the Resilience Fund and the facility that came and let's say the goals that came from the side of the European Commission came at the right time. Why? Because we have already been in communication with local companies, local corporates, which are, because of the COVID crisis, and because of the past experience, looking into the future in a way that they have to invest more in digitalization, that they have to invest more in the green technologies. So we want to take advantage of the Recovery and Resilience Fund and finance such opportunities. So on one side, we are all discussing the needs of the reforms within the public sector. On the other side, we as HBOR, as a development bank, as an export bank of Republic of Croatia, are trying to focus on support to the private sector here in Croatia. And all of the measures that we have proposed to our ministries and to the institutions that are in charge for the Recovery and Resilience Plan and the Recovery and Resilience Fund are measures in which we want to support the private sector here in Croatia. So without the, I would say, good combination and without the good cooperation between the private sector and the public sector, it will be hard to meet the results. So one of the questions that were raised on the previous panel, and this was the question of the potential absorption of the funds from the side of Croatia in general, from the public sector and the private sector, we in HBOR believe that stronger focus to private sector will enable us to utilize the EU funds coming from the cohesion policy, from RRF or some other sources of financing, will enable Croatia to be more effective and more efficient in utilization of the let's say available sources of financing. So in that respect, in the upcoming period, what we as HBOR would like to achieve is to help Croatian entrepreneurs to invest more in the RDI, to invest more in the green and digital technologies. And what we think is a good position is that we are seeing a reaction from the market. Is it because of the COVID pandemic or some other reasons? But we are seeing the reaction from the market, from the private companies that are more and more willing to invest in such opportunities, to invest in green technologies, to invest in digital technologies. And as I already said, we are having the leaders here in Croatia, which can be a good benchmark, especially for young people, for young entrepreneurs, in developing their own businesses. What has to be mentioned and what is our role in this whole, I would say, whole model, being a financial institution, of course, we can only try to, let's say, change and reshape the financial market here in Croatia. Croatian financial market is typically more focused on traditional sources of financing, so on the bank sources of financing and some other traditional sources of financing. And what we are trying to achieve also in HBOR is, of course, to support the traditional sources of financing, but also to develop new alternative sources of financing, especially equity market, which is of extreme importance for the financing of the new technologies, for the financing of the digital transition, for the financing of the green transition. Why? Because the traditional sources of financing are probably less risk averse. So in that respect, they are not willing to finance some aspects that are more risky at the beginning. Therefore, we are trying to develop not only and support not only the traditional market part, but also develop the new sources of financing. Of course, all of these aspects require time, and it's not easy to develop something from the scratch, from the new. But Recovery and Resilience funds, cohesion policy, generally EU funds will enable us and help us in being more efficient. And although we are all looking some of the, let's say, negative aspects of the Croatian market, I think that we will all agree that in the last couple of years, Croatia made a huge, I would say, improvements, especially after becoming a member of the European Union. And by utilizing the EU funds, we have made a strong and significant improvements in many areas. I will come to the conclusion. So from our point of view, from the HBR point of view, the pandemic, of course, brought us a lot of, I would say, health and economic issues, but also they brought us the opportunity to reshape the future and to change the model, to change the model growth. In order to do that, we do have to have people, we do have to have the institution, we do have to have the good cooperation with the public sector in that respect. And thankfully, because of the RRF, Recovery and Resilience funds, and other EU sources of financing, we would also have the financial capabilities to finance such changes. This is for a start, and I'm open for further discussion. Thank you.